Breaking news out of City Hall tonight. Scarborough Agincourt Councillor Jim Karagianis has been kicked out of office by Toronto's city clerk. Our City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly joins us live now with more on this. So, Lauren, what exactly is the councillor accused of doing?
Well, a city spokesperson is calling this a first for Toronto's City Council. Jim Karagianis has been removed as a councillor after review of his campaign expenses. Now, the city clerk's office found he went over one limit by more than $25,000. That's over expenses he filed for parties. Yes, you heard that right. Here's that section of his campaign expense filing. You can see it shows more than $30,000 in total for a victory party after Karagianis won the election and a December appreciation dinner last year. Now, that finding automatically puts Karagianis in default of the Municipal Elections Act, and he is kicked out of his council seat immediately. Now, this is a huge turn of events for the Scarborough councillor who's been in office since 2014 and was an MP for several decades before that. And we've actually spoken to him, and he said that he's not backing down and says that he's not in the wrong here. Take a listen.
I'm going through a compliance audit. We're fighting the compliance audit. I never overspent. There was a clerical mistake, an arithmetic mistake that was made. And my lawyer is in the process of writing to the clerk, advising him of that. And we'll see what other things we're going to do. I'm looking forward to be returning to service my constituents.
Now, again, this was happening today, regardless of what Jim is saying there, that the clerk's office found that he was in default of the Municipal Elections Act, and they really have no leeway here. Dwight.
What sort of reaction have we heard from the people who's heard the news so far, especially there at City Hall?
Right, so this actually came out quite late in the day today, but we do have some reaction from the mayor's office already, with Mayor John Tory saying this is sudden and shocking news and an unfortunate situation for everyone involved, including the councillor, his office staff, the city clerk, and the residents he was elected to serve in Scarborough. Councillor Karagianis, he said, has worked hard over the last 5 years at City Hall to serve the residents of Scarborough Agincourt. And there is also another big piece to this that I should mention. Karagianis, alongside losing his seat right now, he's been banned from being elected or appointed to any office until after the municipal election in 2022.
Lauren Pelly with breaking news from City Hall tonight. Thank you, Lauren.
There's e-transfers that were made under my account, so they were able to go into my online banking again. I didn't ask for this. Nobody asks for this to happen.
Knows what she's doing and quite prolific.
This woman is accused of stealing the identity of dozens of people, trying to lease high-end condos and a Range Rover, and leaving a trail of financial ruin in her wake. Police say she's one of the most prolific identity thieves they have ever seen, but investigators admit they don't know the full extent of her alleged crimes. John Lancaster has more in the CBC Toronto exclusive investigation.
In the last 2 years alone, police allege Deborah Oguntiunbo has stolen the identities of more than 20 women.
She definitely would be considered a professional fraudster, knows what she's doing, and quite prolific.
Sergeant Andy Paddington of York Regional Police says their investigation alone uncovered a trove of alleged evidence.
As search warrants were executed, more evidence of frauds found. She was in possession of identification of multiple social insurance cards, Canadian government passports, driver's licenses, fraudulent checks, all with many different names on it.
CBC News has learned police in Halton, Peel and Toronto have also accused her of identity theft. Mississauga, Ontario resident Natalia Bozic is one of the alleged victims.
I don't feel safe with any bank.
Bozic says Oguntiobo walked into this RBC branch on Don Mills Road and handed a teller a forged driver's license claiming to be Bozic. The bank issued a debit card, and Bozic also believed it may have handed over her social insurance number. In the next 5 days, more than 20 applications for credit cards, bank and car loans were made in her name, and the bad news kept coming for the 24-year-old.
A congratulations letter in the mail saying that I bought a Range Rover.
What went through your mind when you get this letter and open it, and like what's...
Well, I was just thinking, what's next?
Next, police allege, was Oguntoyinbo using Bozic's identity to lease a luxury condo in Markham. Bozic doesn't know how she was first compromised, but says her once good credit is destroyed.
Well, I tried to apply for a mortgage a couple months ago after the incident happened, and I was rejected. I have huge credit files under my name, and I can't afford anything right now because of my credit score after this.
Wow, John Lancaster joins us live now. And John, what is RBC saying about all of this?
Dwight, RBC declined to do an interview with me, nor will they answer specific questions about if they gave the suspect Bozich's SIN number. They've refunded the missing money, but have refused to offer Bozich credit monitoring. They say Bozich should share some of the responsibility for this, Dwight.
What more do we know now about the accused in the case, Deborah?
Well, according to federal bankruptcy records and provincial databases, Ogun Toyinbo has no assets or liens registered in her name. Court records reveal she's been convicted of similar crimes in the past, but has never been sentenced to more than 90 days in jail. She's currently behind bars, facing those 50 charges in multiple jurisdictions, Dwight. Police continue to investigate her as well. CBC News has also learned police have a list of at least 10 aliases she has used.
Thank you, John. Remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. Devontae Miller finally speaks. It's the first time we've heard his account of what happened the night he lost an eye. Two brothers, Michael and Christian Theriault, are charged with aggravated assault and obstructing justice. Michael is a Toronto police officer who was off duty at the time. Lorenda Redekop is covering the trial in Oshawa and has all the details from this day of dramatic testimony.
Devontae Miller, now 22, arrived to tell his side of what happened on December 28, 2016. He spoke in a calm voice describing that night. He says he was walking on the sidewalk with two friends, listening to music on his phone and rapping on the way to see three girls. Outside one house, two white men on their driveway, one with long hair, the other short-haired, asked them if they lived in the area. Miller says he questioned why they were asking, and the short-haired one responded. He said he was a cop. He can ask what he wants. Miller says he was chased and ended up going the opposite direction from his friends. The two men caught up to him in front of a house. I was in a headlock, getting kicked in the headlock. The one with the longer hair had me in the headlock. He said he felt something hard, hitting him in the head. It felt like an object. He squirmed out of the headlock. Miller says he saw the shorter-haired one with a pipe. The alleged weapon was found at the scene. He ran between two houses. The beating continued. At some point after all the blows, he says, "I wasn't feeling it no more, but I was seeing it." He says he made his way back to the front door of a house and was hit with the pipe again. That's when blood poured out. He banged on the door with both hands. The Crown shows Miller evidence photos of a pipe, asked if he recognizes it. Miller says he assumes that's the one from that night. He says the hits from the pipe came from the shorter-haired man, Michael Theriault. On cross-examination, Michael Theriault's lawyer tried to raise doubts about items found on the snow. Sunglasses, Miller said, weren't his, and a flashlight. A theft charge against Miller was among the ones dropped months later. He says his mother picked up his items. The Crown told the court today that during Miller's testimony, breaks may need to be more frequent, and that's because he has to put drops in his eyes. The cross-examination continues tomorrow. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Oshawa.
Celebrity businessman Kevin O'Leary and his wife are facing a wrongful death lawsuit. It stems from a fatal boat crash. This past summer on Lake Joseph in Muskoka, Kevin O'Leary was a passenger in the boat. His wife was driving the vessel when it collided with another boat. 48-year-old Suzanne Brito and 64-year-old Gary Poltash both died. Relatives of Brito are now seeking $2 million in damages from the O'Learys as well as from the driver and owner of the other boat. The lawsuit filed in Oshawa argues Brito's death was the result of negligence. Toronto police say a major investigation has led to a huge seizure of drugs and guns.
A pistol grip 12-gauge shotgun, over 7.5 kilos of powder cocaine, close to 1 kilo of fentanyl.
That's just some of what investigators seized during 3 probes. In all, they rounded up nearly $400,000 in cash and close to $4 million worth of illicit drugs such as cocaine, crack, fentanyl, and heroin. They also seized weapons, including a semi-automatic rifle, handguns, and a number of revolvers. Police Chief Mark Saunders said this is the new reality when it comes to street gangs.
This is the lifeblood of street gangster culture. They're in it for the money, and anytime we can disrupt that money, we help deter more people from wanting to get into the industry, and also we can help save lives.
6 people are facing dozens of charges. Police say they're still looking for one suspect. He's been identified as 27-year-old Nicholas Reed of Markham.
I think there's been a general decline in good manners, both personally and professionally, over the years, recent years especially.
Cancellations, rescheduling, and no-shows. Employers say ghosting in the workplace is becoming more common. We'll bring you that story coming up. The province's finances are in better shape, so there will be fewer cuts over the next year. That's the message from Finance Minister Rod Phillips today as he gave a more positive picture of Ontario's fiscal situation. Lisa Shing has the details.
Our government has a plan to build Ontario together.
Finance Minister Rod Phillips took on a more positive tone when he presented the fall economic statement in the House this afternoon. The mini-budget pegged this year's deficit at $9 billion, down about $1.3 billion stated in the spring budget. Spending went up that same amount.
This isn't about grand gestures. It's about, incremental, important changes that make life easier for people.
A lot of that spending, though, can be attributed to those adjustments the government has made in the last few months, like walking back funding cuts.
You can expect that this is a government that is going to listen and continue to listen and make sure that we make adjustments as we go along.
The PCs did add some new measures, like allowing licensed cannabis producers to sell weed and private retailers to sell online or by phone for pickup. The province is also making visits to museums and galleries free for young people, but hasn't given details on when that will kick in. It's also lowering the small business corporate tax rate and a lower aviation fuel tax rate in the north. The opposition parties don't buy the new tone.
It's really, really clear that all they're doing is kind of delaying, backtracking, softening maybe, but there is no new spending here that people should be getting excited about.
This is still the government that wants to make class sizes larger, not smaller. This is the government that's still cutting mental health funding, has no plan for climate change.
Even though the deficit is up, the finance minister says the government is still on track to balancing the budget by 2023, a year after the next election. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, let's bring our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley to dive a little deeper into today's economic statement. And Mike, we've talked a lot about how the government's tone has changed, but does this really now back that up?
Well, look, Dwight, this is not as if the Ford government is somehow cracking open the piggy bank and throwing money off of the rooftops. The thing is that when you put in the spring budget that you're going to cut spending, and then you change your mind in the months that follow, when you put it down here in the fall economic statement, it looks like there's an increase in spending going on. But what it's really doing is it's taking some of those spending cuts that the PCs were talking about making and putting it back onto the province's books. It's effectively accounting for the walkbacks of those cuts. The PCs do want Ontarians to believe that they're turning over a new leaf, that they're trying to strike a new tone, and there is, of course, a new finance minister. But the budget that is in place is still the budget that came from the old finance minister. There are no additional spending cuts in this document. But look, nearly every ministry had its budget cut in this fiscal year, with the exception of health and education. And in the cases of those ones, the increases that are actually happening, once you account for population growth and inflation, it's not actually a real spending increase. So there is still restraint happening very clearly from this government, right?
So what should we be looking for then from this government in the coming months?
Well, the real test is going to be what actually happens come the spring budget. One thing you're going to see is an increase in revenues. Already they're projecting that corporate tax revenues are going to be nearly $1 billion higher this year than they were forecasting back in April. So that's one sign that the economy is doing well, and that also makes balancing the budget, getting rid of the deficit, a little bit easier. The real question is there going to be any sort of an ease off on the austerity over the long term? Because you got to remember that some of the toughest spending restraint actually is to happen in the coming fiscal years, according to what was projected by the government back in the spring budget. Dwight?
Thank you, Mike. Get our first check with Colette now. We're hoping that the models might have changed and this wintry mix heading our way maybe have moved another direction.
Yeah, well, we can dream, Dwight, but no, that is not the case. I am here to fill you in on all the details of what's happening. Environment Canada has issued a special weather statement because of this rain-snow mix. It's already begun moving in. We will see some poor road conditions, especially as you go towards tomorrow morning. So for the morning commute, you'll want to allow some extra time due to some slick surfaces as the temperatures fall off. For now, we're seeing those temperatures right around 2 degrees for the most part around the GTA. I do want to also mention a weather advisory for travel. Now, this is more current for the areas in blue, but setting up Thursday into Friday as the winds pick up across the lakes. Behind this system, there will be some areas, and these are in yellow, the snow squall watch areas, where there'll be reduced visibility, and it's highly localized, but 20 to 30 centimeters of snowfall is possible. I said it's beginning to make its way in. It's a bit spotty in nature, and coming in at one time it'll be some light snow falling, and then you'll get into some showery activity. So taking a closer look, breaking up through Pickering, and then a few flurries coming back through towards Toronto downtown. You're seeing more of a rain right now, but then it gets into more of a mix as we go back towards Pearson. Pearson last hour was reporting a little bit of light snow. Now it's more into showers, seeing that into Hamilton as well at this moment, but it was some light snow a little bit earlier, and that's going to be how it will be, and then it will turn over to all light, wet snow, a few centimeters possible. We'll dive deeper into the accumulations coming up, but 0 your overnight low, and the high only climbing to 3 degrees tomorrow, Dwight.
Only 3. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
By now, you've probably heard the term ghosting, when a person cuts off all communication without a warning, right? But now it's becoming a big problem in the workplace, too. Aaron Salzman explains.
Wise Bites snacks are selling like hotcakes, but the company is struggling to find a key ingredient for future success. It keeps getting stood up by people it's trying to hire.
I can book appointments for 5 people to come and have an interview, and out of those 5, 3 could be no-shows.
It's happening so often these days, there's even a term for it, borrowed straight from the world of personal relationships.
That's what they call ghosting.
Recruiter Mark Rouse says it is becoming an epidemic.
They'll do well in the first interview, and the client will say, okay, schedule that person in for the second interview. We'd love to see them again. We think they may be the one. And then they vanish.
Just disappear.
Yeah, they just disappear.
Recruiters, he says, are also seeing people accepting jobs and then not showing up for work. Some are even ghosting gigs they already have, walking out without notice or explanation, no response to calls or emails. With employment growing nearly twice as fast as the overall economy, there is a growing labor shortage. But those doing the hiring say multiple job options is no excuse for poor behavior.
I think there's been a general decline in good manners, both personally and professionally over the years, in recent years especially.
But others say companies have been ghosting workers for years. Think not responding to job applicants or giving no feedback from interviews, work ending with no explanation. Now, the roles are reversed.
Some of these behaviors that we're seeing, organizations have done for a while. So if we're seeing it maybe as a power shift, and I think maybe there's some other indications of how workers today are trying to rebalance that power.
For smaller businesses like Wise Bites, the change is startling.
When I started my first company, people would show up at the door in their best attire, resume underneath their arm, and a couple of references in their back pocket. And today, it's so very different.
The nature of the relationship has changed. Now it's employers who are the ones left wondering why someone isn't taking their calls. Aaron Saltzman, CBC News, Toronto.
How will the Fitbit data and the Google data be used together?
Google now owns Fitbit, and with that purchase comes all the health data that was recorded on your device. We'll talk about those privacy concerns and what you need to know coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Google has just announced that it is buying Fitbit for a cool $2.1 billion. Our tech columnist, Ramona Pringle, joins us now with more on the deal and what it means for consumers. Why is Google interested in Fitbit?
I mean, the obvious place to start is just to make a splash in the wearables market. You know, wearables, everyone always is talking about what comes after our smartphones. And wearables feel like an obvious next direction, whether it's watches or something else.
Definitely next.
So that's a big part of it. And Google really hasn't been able to, they haven't had that much traction. I mean, they had Google Glass and we saw how that went. That was a bit of a flop for them. But they've not been able to compete with, let's say, the Apple Watch. So I think that that's a big part of it. Now they'll have the software and the hardware to be able to have something on the market that competes that is a flagship product.
Is this just then part of us seeing more wearables coming to the market in all forms?
That's part of it. I actually think that there's a bigger play for Google. I mean, they spent $2.1 billion, and to think of them spending that much money for just, you know, to just be able to compete with the Apple Watch, yeah. Fitbit's interesting. So Fitbit, I mean, when you look at Fitbit as a success story, it's really interesting to watch. I think that it's almost become synonymous with wearables. I think the way we talk about, we call tissue Kleenex,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
Fitbit is, you know, we talk about wearables, it's often
it's a brand,
Fitbit,
but we talk about it like it's the product.
And they've evolved from having little clip-ons to having wristbands to having smartwatches and then back again. And by knowing what people wanted, they've sold about 100 million units. And so they've been a big success. And I think once Google has that, it says a lot. So they will be able to compete with Apple in a way that they haven't been able to. But the other thing that I don't think people are talking about enough, that to me is the elephant in the room, is what this means in terms of Google's data collection and their ability to now make plays in wellness space, health data, and insurance, which is a really big one.
Yeah, because they'll have my heartbeat, they'll know how healthy I am. So let's talk about the privacy concerns that comes with this then.
Yeah, well, Fitbit in their policy said, or in their announcement, their big press release for all of this, said that Google wouldn't be able to use your personal health information or your wrist information for advertising. But advertising is just scratching the surface. Yeah, it really is. I mean, if you think about them potentially getting into something like, let's say, insurance, you know, in the last year or so, we've seen big insurance brands like John Hancock move into entirely interactive policies where you have to be wearing a wrist tracker so that it is based on your fitness tracking, your sleep tracking, how many steps that you're taking, both your policy, your premium, all of those things. And with a company like Google, what we don't know yet, with Fitbit in particular, when you talk about privacy and how all of our data is used, is how will the Fitbit data and the Google data be used together, right? Because if you do have a policy, you know, you think about them monitoring how healthy you are, how many steps you take, how well you sleep. But they also, because it all is under the umbrella of Google now, will know where you go in a day, who you're emailing, what you're searching for. And so, you know, what does it mean for your life insurance policy if they also know not only do you walk this much a day, but you eat fast food 5 times a week, 3 times a week. This is where I think it's really important to look a couple years down the road with all of these things.
I guess the big question then that comes out of all of this is that do we have to worry about these big tech companies then scooping up these small startups?
Yeah. Well, this is such a timely conversation right now. This is the whole issue of antitrust that we're hearing so much about with Google and Facebook.
It's a monopoly. They own everything.
Yeah, and they own so much of the online ad market, and we've seen what the repercussions are when they have so much control. Now imagine if that same dynamic, if you see that same dynamic in a space like health insurance or life insurance, if they start moving into that space. The reason the monopoly is concerning is that when these companies get too big, others can't compete. And when there's no competition, let's say you or I don't like the policy of a specific company, we can't just leave and go to the competition. The competition doesn't exist, which means that those big companies can get away with a lot more. They can get away with things that we may not be comfortable with. So this is where, you know, all of these things get tied together, and it's interesting to look at a move like this, not just as, Google wants to get into hardware with this, but really what is their data play as well.
It's that data mining that is really the future here.
That's right.
Thank you, Ramona.
You're welcome.
I'm just concerned of what this city is becoming if we just overdevelop without any concern for our future generations.
A few parents at Alpha Alternative School got creative to illustrate an issue that's important to them. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we'll show you why they're worried about a proposed development stealing sunshine from their kids.
Parents at Alpha Alternative School decided to pick up a camera and demonstrate through a short film how a proposed development could impact their children. The development on King Street next to the school hasn't been approved yet, but the area's council agrees there needs to be some change to make it fit better into the neighborhood. Talia Ritchie has more.
The narrative of the video is quite simple. It's showing what children experience when they go outside and what they will cease to experience if the condo is developed.
This parent is among many at Alpha Alternative School who say a proposed development downtown will rob their children of the Sunshine's benefits.
Profit over children is not okay.
I'm just concerned of what the city is becoming if we just overdevelop without any concern for our future generations.
The proposal is a mixed-use 12-story building that includes 77 residences as well as office and retail space.
You have to build the city you want, and that means having affordable housing and places for people to live and schools that actually have sunlight on the playground where people send their kids.
It would also be 49 meters high. The area's councillor says it's not being executed in the right way.
10 years ago, a development was approved that cast shadow on this playground. It was approved despite the city's opposition to it. We have a new application that's come in that proposes to make some improvements around separation distances from the school, but it does increase shadow on the playground, and that's unacceptable.
And these are the people parents say will suffer.
They're just going to feel more lonely because there's going to be no sunlight. And I'm worried it might go with their emotions with the kids, like if the building's really dark.
In a statement, one of the developers, Great Gulf, says it continues to work with city planning staff and the councillor's office to reach a positive outcome concerning this matter. The project has yet to be approved. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
A string of gas station robberies overnight, and police believe the same group is responsible for all of them. The most recent incident happened early this morning at an Esso station near Highway 427 in Dundas. Stations in Brampton, Mississauga, and Toronto were all robbed last night by masked men looking for money, lottery tickets, and cigars. Toronto and Peel officers are now looking for the thieves, saying they could be connected to a rash of robberies around the GTA over the past 2 days. The getaway vehicle is a white Toyota Sienna. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. A Toronto man has been charged with numerous sex-related offenses, and police believe there may be more victims. 52-year-old Mohammed Nafal Hadi Mohammed was arrested late last month. He faces a total of 54 charges, including 14 counts each of sexual assault and sexual exploitation of a young person. He's also facing 12 counts of sexual interference with a person under 14, plus a number of other charges. Police believe there are other victims and are asking anyone with more information to come forward. A shoot for an Amazon TV show that was planned at the site of the Yonge Street van attack has been canceled, with community members saying the violent scene hits too close to home to the tragedy that killed 10 people.
The unfortunate part of this is that it didn't come to light sooner that the particular scene that was being filmed was one that involved potentially quite a bit of violence. An incredibly historic tragedy took place right there 1 year ago. It's still very much on the minds of people who work there, who live there, people who are in the City Hall who saw things they've never seen before and hopefully will never see again.
The city says it will be reviewing their processes to make sure that film permits take into consideration locations where violent crimes have taken place. The city wants to maintain Toronto's reputation as a film-friendly city. The Amazon show The Boys is currently shooting its second season in Toronto.
It's humbling to be signing an autograph like this at a facility like this, where the people that we're meeting here have done so much more than we ever have.
Some Leafs players met with more than 100 Canadian veterans today, thanking them for all they have done. We'll bring you to the special ceremony coming up a little later in the show. Voters in the UK are heading back to the polls on December 12th. The official campaign started today after Prime Minister Boris Johnson formally asked the Queen to dissolve Parliament. Renee Filipponi has more.
This is the High Street in Uxbridge, a town west of London and Boris Johnson's riding. He won this seat by 5,000 votes just 2 years ago, but it's a different political climate now. And no matter what side of the political spectrum voters sit on, they all seem frustrated.
Get on with the job, you know. I think he's great, actually. Got some guts.
I'm more of a traditional Conservative, but I won't be voting for the Conservatives now.
I don't really have any feelings about any of them anymore. I don't have any faith in them.
Johnson kicked off his campaign today with a visit to the Queen to officially dissolve Parliament and then a speech out front of 10 Downing Street. It's clear his #1 message is that only a Tory vote will get Brexit done.
We have no choice because our Parliament is paralysed. It's been stuck in a rut for 3.5 years, and I'm afraid our MPs are just refusing time and again to deliver Brexit and honour the mandate of the people. I can tell you, I've got to the stage where I'd be wanting to chew my own tie.
The Labour Party has promised it would renegotiate the withdrawal deal if they won and then put it to a second referendum to the people. That party needs to be careful because they have support from both the Leave and the Remain side, and it can't afford to lose that. In a speech today, leader Jeremy Corbyn chose not to focus on Brexit, but on other issues.
I think it is time for real change, and I can't wait for December the 12th when we can start that real change to change this country into a decent, caring, compassionate place that works for and cares for all.
There are also real concerns from the two main parties that vote splitting on the left and the right could be a big factor. The Brexit Party could potentially siphon off hardline Leavers from the Tories, and the Liberal Democrats, who promise to cancel Brexit, could steal Remainer votes from Labour. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Uxbridge, UK.
In Washington, the House Intelligence Committee first open hearings of the impeachment inquiry next Wednesday.
So those open hearings will be an opportunity for the American people to evaluate the witnesses for themselves, to make their own determinations about the credibility of the witnesses, but also to learn firsthand about the facts of the president's misconduct.
Witnesses at next week's hearing will include William Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine. Today we got a transcript of his closed-door testimony. In it, he says it was his clear understanding that the U.S. wouldn't give financial assistance to Ukraine unless that country's president said publicly he would investigate Joe and Hunter Biden. All right, call it. Give it to us. We can take it.
You can take it. All right, good. I'm going to start off, Dwight, with the special weather statement once again, because this is important. Environment Canada has issued this for the rain and snow mix that is moving in, and it is going to fill in a little more as we go through the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. And this is why I am cautioning you for tomorrow morning. You may want to allow a little extra time if you can budget that, because it could be a slow commute, slower than usual, as we'll see some slick surfaces as well. The temperature 2 degrees right now, but that's going to be falling closer to freezing, and as it does, you kind of get the drill with that kind of a mix on the roads. That's where we could really have some areas that are going to be slow moving. Now, this is what's happening at the moment. It is that mix, especially closer to the lakeshore. For example, Toronto City Centre is reporting some light rain showers, but Pearson is reporting some light snow, and we're seeing a little bit further off towards the southwest, over towards London, it's a light rain and snow mix being reported. So that's all what's happening, and there are some kind of breaks in the precipitation here as we get a little closer into the GTA as it's moving in, and that will get a little more consistent then through the overnight and eventually turn over to wet, light, but wet snow throughout the area, even seeing that pushing further south along the Golden Horseshoe over towards St. Catharines. You're probably going to get into a little bit of light, wet snow later on. Now, in terms of how this is going to push through and the timing of it, as we get towards tomorrow morning, we'll start to see it, not for the morning commute likely, but just after that, a few hours after, tapering off. We get into some breaks in the precipitation, and then into the afternoon, some flurries likely coming back at us. And as I was mentioning earlier in the show, there are some snow squall watches for areas around Georgian Bay and in the lee of Lake Huron. That's for Thursday into Friday, as some of these squalls could set up where you'll have very reduced visibility, and also look for some higher snow accumulations there. But Friday will be a quieter day throughout the GTA. Snowfall accumulations through tomorrow morning as the system works its way through, 1 to 2 centimeters. But watch what happens with some flurries into the afternoon. We may pack on another and bring some of these up to that 2 centimeters. But London, if you get tagged by one of these squalls coming off Lake Huron, by the time we get into Friday, we're talking 10 centimeters there. In other areas, that could be enhanced even double or triple that, but highly localized. Overnight tonight, there are your temperatures falling down to 0, and tomorrow we climb only to 2 to 3 degrees with some afternoon flurries, and then much colder air comes in. Tomorrow night, -6, so Friday morning, very chilly. These numbers way below where we should be at this time of year for our daytime highs and our overnight lows, Dwight.
All right, I'm going to stop trying to look cool and pull out the jacket. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah, it's time, Dwight.
Yes,
it's time.
Yes, I know. Thank you. This video from British Columbia is raising questions about the safety of driverless cars. It shows a Tesla driving itself on the wrong side of the road. The owner apparently used a new feature that summons the car automatically using a mobile app. Authorities in the province say it is illegal to operate a car without a driver. It's the world's first brain surgery using robotics, and it's being done right here in Toronto. Coming up, we'll bring you behind the scenes and show you how the new technology could actually change lives.
I first heard about this, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because it's for the first time that we are doing truly a brain surgery with the assist of a robot. And when I realized, however, how well it worked and how precise it worked, and the excellent outcome that we can enable with this type of treatment.
Like most charities, Habitat for Humanity receives all kinds of donations. And earlier this year, one store in Ontario got some goods that were just too valuable to actually sell. So one of the volunteers decided to find the rightful owner. Nazima Walji has the story.
At Habitat for Humanity's Restore in Peterborough, you can find all the usual items you'd find at any of their donation centers. Tables, couches, chairs, even lamps. But earlier this year, at the bottom of a box that ended up in their store, covered in old Tupperware containers, were World War I medals. There was never a question of selling them, but rather finding out who they belonged to.
It's just a skill set I have, and I have a pretty good intuition.
Jill Bennett is a longtime volunteer with Habitat, and she just happens to be great at researching. In the adoption world, Bennett is known as a search angel, someone who helps find long-lost loved ones through sleuthing and research, and helps family members reunite. But in this case, she was asked to match the war medals with the family.
It was very rewarding and very exciting. My grandfather was in both World Wars, and all I would think about, the nights you get frustrated was, what if these were his medals?
Today, the medals were returned. Catherine Allen is the daughter of Major George Raymore Scott and granddaughter of Honorary Captain Reverend Andrew Joseph Vining, the soldiers who were awarded the medals. They served in World War I. Allen is in her 90s now and didn't realize the medals went missing, but has fond memories of her father and grandfather and the war stories they used to tell.
So when I got the phone call, I was just blown away because, as I said, I didn't know they were lost. And then to know that they've been found and that somebody had gone to the effort to find out to whom they belonged.
No one's really sure how the medals ended up here in a donation pile, but Allen is happy to have them back. Nazima Walji, CBC News, Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh, glad they were able to reunite her with the medals. With Remembrance Day less than a week away, a group of players from our Toronto Maple Leafs spent part of the afternoon with some of our war heroes. They paid a visit to Sunnybrook's Veteran Centre to sign autographs, pose for pictures, and of course, swap stories. Our Greg Ross was there.
A few of Toronto's hockey heroes rubbing shoulders with a group of war heroes.
These guys are the real heroes, obviously.
Alexander Kerfoot was joined by teammates Travis Dermott and Frederick Gauthier at Sunnybrook Hospital's Veterans Centre.
Hear the stories that they're able to tell us are really touching, and it makes putting this jersey on even more meaningful.
Today, these veterans weren't only sharing war stories, they had plenty of Leaf memories to share as well. When you were a kid, who was your favorite player?
Chuck Conacher was my favorite player.
He said he gave you tickets once.
He gave us three tickets.
Have you always been a Leafs fan?
Yeah, I saw them win the Stanley Cup the last time.
He remembers the last time the Leafs won the cup. Now, do you remember when that was?
I don't know.
Right here.
Right by Daryl Silver.
The current players were joined by some former Leafs, like Wendell Clark, a favorite with many of these veterans. You get tired of seeing that reaction?
Well, that's the greatest connection about being a Toronto Maple Leaf, about playing with a team with that much history and how far it goes back, and it's a Maple Leaf on the chest.
But there was something else on their chest, and many of these players will have a much greater appreciation of it after today. Today you're wearing a poppy. Does that thing mean a little bit more when you're in a place like this with a veteran like that?
Yeah, of course. I think when you see the guy there, the real hero here, I think it's always nice to visit them and be able to spend some time with them. And like I said, they're the real hero. It means a lot to be here.
It's humbling to be signing an autograph like this at a facility like this, where the people that we're meeting here have done so much more than we ever have.
It was a short but meaningful day for many of these veterans who are hoping these players will continue a long, successful season.
We'll see you guys in June on the ice. That's the plan.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
I'll sign it right here.
I had to do the countdown from 10, and it was kind of nerve-wracking because I didn't want to mess up the host.
Yeah, we don't like it when you mess up the hosts. It's Take Your Kids to Work Day. Coming up, we'll bring you behind the scenes and show you what the kids were up to today here at the CBC. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Doctors at a Toronto hospital performed the world's first neurovascular surgery using robotics last week. They used a machine that can guide a catheter to a patient's brain from a single incision made near the groin. The minimally invasive technique could revolutionize aneurysm and stroke treatment. We went to the Kremble Brain Institute to see how the remote control robotic arm works.
Okay, we're locked and loaded.
Okay, I'm taking over. For the first time, we are able to use robotics to assist our procedures. And in the last few years, we've been treating more and more effectively ischemic strokes that are time-sensitive disease. And these devices and this technique has revolutionized the treatment of this disease. We are here inside the room, so the patient usually is lying down into that bed. And this is the robotic arm that we use to connect to the catheters. And we load here the different wires and catheters into this cassette, and the robotic system will then navigate them through the patient's anatomy. And we will then control the movements of the robotic system from the console. So these are the arms and the fingers of the robotic system, and we can manipulate the catheters, the wires, and the devices. And we move as a joystick, and we can see here what exactly we are doing. This machine can do what we do in forehand sometimes, and helping us placing with millimetric precision the stents and the devices where we want to treat.
This device opens the doors to the potential of remote endovascular therapies, i.e. that the patient is at his or her local hospital, whereas the operator is at a remote site, for example here at the Toronto Western Hospital, steering the robot to perform this type of treatment. When I first heard about this, I felt a little bit uncomfortable because it's for the first time that we are doing truly a brain surgery with the assist of a robot. And when I realized, however, how well it worked and how precise it worked, and the excellent outcome that we can enable with this type of treatment.
Okay, tomorrow you may be seeing some white flakes coming down from the sky, according to Colette. Yes, it might be our first snowfall. We'll check in with Colette one last time after the break. It was Take Your Kids to Work Day, well, all over the country, actually. And Colette, you showed them that your job is not as easy as you make it look.
I thought you were going to say is easy.
No.
Well, you know what? There's a few times a year I'm popular. One is when the weather's really good, and the other is on these days because it's so much fun to go in and try your hand at the weather wall. And we had a lot of fun today. Some budding meteorologists here.
Overnight, it looks like it's gonna start snowing. My name's Arbel, and my aunt works in the network department. I was telling the weather, and I was like reviewing it. The toughest part was trying to match up my finger with the actual the city, and it was all reverse, but I got used to it.
And it's pretty warm there. It's good to see I'm a little bit in an adult's world and life on a daily basis, and it's also good to just see where your parents are going every day and get informed.
4, 3, 2.
Today I worked as an AD for Studio K, and I was the behind the scenes person.
Your arms get really tired holding the camera for long, so that was having to hold it and wait for everyone to get ready. It was kind of hard.
Name a reason it's good to be Justin Bieber.
He gets a lot of money.
When the Justin Bieber question came, we all kind of clicked, and we just knew who he was, and we knew we just thought of what the benefits of that would be and what we think is cool about his life and what we would want from it.
I think it's important for kids to come to work because it helps them see what they might want to do or what their parents do.
Love it.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I'm waiting for Take Your Dog to Work Day because I know she wonders where do I go every day. We have that special weather statement in place, and overnight tonight we're looking at kind of a messy mix of sometimes some light rain, then turning into some wet snow, light wet snow, but accumulations of 1 to 2 centimeters now. It's not going to last long, of course. Overnight 0 and tomorrow 3 for the high.
We cut down your time because you were talking about snow. That's it for us tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Mike Wise has you covered at 11.